we've got to give, and then you guys can go around and do some questions. Okay. Okay, I'll start. My name is Sergeant Chris Skidmore, CHRIS-SKIDMORE, and I'm the Administrative Sergeant PIO at the Clark County Sheriff's Office. So the update that I can share with you guys today, I was talking with our investigative team. They were out here till about 4:30. You want me to start over?
Sorry, we're having a connection issue.
We're good? We're not live with anything, right?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
We're good?
I have clear as a bell, great sound. I just don't need microphones because I'm magic.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. So, yep, I guess the update that I can share today after talking with our investigative team, they were out here till about 4:30 this morning, so it kind of got in a little bit late. And then what we want to share is that they're still working on trying to do some next of kin notifications. I know there's some information out publicly, kind of with some other information, kind of maybe starting to do that, but we're not going to release names until we have a chance to get the ME's office to participate in that. So autopsies scheduled over the next couple days to get those done, and then we'll be able to do a full identification at that time. We are willing to share that we do believe we have kind of the relationships of the family. So the suspect obviously was deceased along with his wife and then 2 adult daughters, and then the suspect's brother as well, for the total of 5. One of the things I wanted to address is there was some questions, I think, from some people about kind of the delay response and kind of the timeline of how that works. So I think it's important to know, I saw some stuff talking about, possibly screams or something come from the house. That is not the indications that we have. The text message that was sent to the other family member was sent much earlier in the day, several hours prior to, that said that, maybe some harm was committed. And so that was kind of what they were going off of. After talking with the family, we knew that there was a possibility of firearms involvements, and just that we can't go and just, in that kind of situation, we're not going to go just knock up on the door. Obviously, some investigative search that goes into that, trying to locate who lives at the house, who might be there, attempts to contact victims once we kind of had that information. Very limited circumstances we can do this in, and this was kind of one of the exceptions. The other would be like if someone was kidnapped, but we asked for an exigent ping of cell phones for the victims to see if we could place them in the area or the potential people we thought could be in the house. And once they had that information, then they were able to make that entry using the small unmanned aircraft system under an exigent circumstance. And then because it starts to get into kind of a criminal matter as well, once they kind of determined it looked like everyone inside was deceased and had been for at least a little while, they come back out, finish completing a search warrant before they start looking for evidence of crimes and that kind of stuff. So I know there were some concerns about timeline. I just want to alleviate that. People maybe had reported possibly some gunshots while we were on scene, and that's not the case. I want to dispel any of that. It's very common for our regional SWAT team to use like a noise flash dispersionary device, or a flashbang, as people would commonly refer to them as. So if they use something like that, that can kind of sometimes sound like indication of gunshots, but not the case in this. So I just wanted to address those.
So we have cell phone video that a neighbor took of a man you can hear yelling around 2:40, and then police going inside at around 3:40. So the man that was yelling, were you able to identify who that is?
I have not in any of the stuff talked about anything man yelling. I know that they had eyes on the house fairly early. I think the call came out for us and we had people on scene around 1 o'clock, and there was no indications of any type of any type of exchange with people at the house or at the residence.
But did officers report the yelling? Like, it was audible on a cell phone video.
I did not see or hear anything about that, so no, I don't know.
What can you tell us about the live streaming on our website? Just a heads up.
Okay.
What can you tell us about the family?
I don't have a lot of information about that at this time, and so I don't have enough details to share with it. It appears that all the people did live at the house that were involved in this, and that's about the extent that I know.
You can do a welfare check, though, so I guess the question is, when the call came in, why wasn't somebody sent to do a welfare check?
They were. So the text message was sent this early in the morning to the relative who lives up in the Seattle area. He didn't call us until after 12:30 after he received the text message. So there was a several hour delay from the time the text message, so we did send people over as soon as we got a call into our dispatch system that said that we were doing that. So there
you
wasn't.
guys were here around what, 1:30?
I think one, if I have to look, I think it's right just after 101, 103 was the dispatched call time, and so I don't know what I didn't see what the arrival time was.
So this relative in Seattle, he was the one that called the sheriff's office.
Called into dispatch, and it sounded like, he called in up north, and then they transferred him down here, and then they were able to get someone here. So I don't know that exact timeline of what that was, but we did send people once we were aware of a possible situation.
Another neighbor said they believe that the suspect was a veteran. Do you have any information?
I don't know if that's the case or not.
Okay. And then, sorry to go back to the yelling thing.
Yeah.
But neighbors have on video this man yelling, police being outside, and then not going inside. They did send in a drone and a robot and
yeah, we did
bombs.
We did do the drone and the robot. They did shoot out some windows, so I don't know if it was another neighbor that was unrelated, but they did not have contact with anybody at the house. I want to be clear about that from what we know. So I don't know who the neighbor or who you can hear yelling. It's not uncommon that it will go to a scene and other people, because we start loud hailing over the mic, and then all of a sudden people from who maybe don't like us as much or other related will come out, start screaming or involve themselves. I don't know if that took place, but that's something we've seen in the past.
So when officers arrived at 1, around what time were you able to confirm that there was 5 deceased inside?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the timeline. It did take a little bit of while because of kind of some of the things we talked about, right? They're not just going to go up. There was some indication, some possible firearm involvement. They, try to loud hail the house. They don't get any response. There's kind of no signs of activity or anything going on at the house. So then it's kind of going through that process. We still have to work a little bit to get to that exigent point. And so that was that next step, was being able to try to introduce the small unmanned aircraft system. And then that's when they first notified that there were people who appeared to be obviously deceased.
And these victims were shot and killed, correct?
Yes, that's from what I understand, that they were all shot.
Do you know about what time they were shot?
I think they'll be able to figure that out as part of the autopsy process, but that'll be the MEs to determine.
Has the gun been recovered?
I know they recovered several things. I don't know specifically what firearms or what was taken from the house.
And something like this is definitely not normal, especially here in Clark County. How are deputies doing after working the scene?
It's definitely something that's challenging for sure. Unfortunately, you say not normal. I mean, I think back to last year, there was kind of around the holidays a very similar situation involving a husband, a wife, and a young child. If you guys recall back, so unfortunately, it's not the first time we've seen something kind of similar that shocks the conscience like this. But that's what it is. We have a good peer support team that we work with at the sheriff's office that will make sure we reach out to everyone who's involved with that call, because we definitely want to check on people. Definitely hard.
Is there any history at this house?
From what I understand, there was absolutely no previous premise history, is what we refer to, where the sheriff's office has come out here before.
And the suspect, is there any previous history on him?
From what I understand, no criminal history, and we had, like I said, had no history out of this address.
Can you give us the ages of the people, if you have that?
I don't. I just don't want to get too close to that, just because we, already kind of given that relationship piece of it, and I don't know. Like I said, want to be respectful. I know there's a lot of information that's out there on some of the other stuff, but
all above 18 though.
All adults, all above 18. Yes, ma'am.
I think the one question that really people I hear talking about is why police didn't enter, and there's a reason. Is there a way that you could maybe describe what the criteria is for when police can enter a house?
It's weighing that, and that's a tough challenge, right? It's weighing that, people have constitutional right to be in their home, because what you wouldn't want us doing is you get a text message, kind of like a swatting thing, where, oh my gosh, someone's in danger, and here all of a sudden the police come in, kick in a door, and all of a sudden you're sitting there. And so it's that balance of that extreme there and doing that work to be able to do it. So it's like, obviously, if we had heard anything, that's why I'm 100% certain they didn't have any exchange. Because had we had an exchange or something with somebody at the residence, then we maybe have, or if we hear someone screaming for help, that creates that exigency right away. And of course, deputies are going to go in and deal with that and try to take care of, if someone's at risk right then and there, versus where they come, a scene where there's no signs, no lights on, nothing like anybody's home. They've made attempts to loud hail. Then they're going to start working that, slowing that down a little bit, because the concern about someone being in threat immediately kind of lessens a little bit. So will take a little bit more time to get to.
We heard from some neighbors that were out here on the scene listening to deputies, and they're waiting for a judge's order. Was there anything involved that had to go through the courts to enter the house?
Well, that's why it's kind of weighing that, right? So they can enter with that exigent circumstances, which they did, to be able to confirm. Once they realize that there's people in there that are deceased, it becomes a crime scene. And so realizing it's like, okay, there's no one in there we can rush in and save, and so then they will slow that process down, and yes, they wait for a search warrant signed by a judge, because if this is going to be a crime scene or something outstanding, where that's the time where then, we want to be able to use that evidence in court, and if we just rush in there and start collecting evidence, we may lose that.
But I guess a question, though, following that is the idea that perhaps somebody is still alive, even though they're on the ground.
Potentially, and you have to weigh that risk, and kind of, again, based off of some of the timelines from text messages we had from the suspect to the other family member, we were fairly comfortable not thinking there was someone was exigently in danger at the house at the time once we arrived.
So is it safe to say when officers arrived, everyone was dead?
That's our
Or
belief.
they believe?
Yes, that's what we believe. And then we'll know more about timeline once we get the autopsy. They'll be able to kind of determine time of death, how long.
And any of the screaming neighbors could have heard was unrelated to the scene as far as you...
Or us screaming at other, sometimes us screaming at people, yelling at people to stay inside, maybe an exchange between neighbors. I don't know. I'm comfortable saying there was no exchange of conversation between any resident or person at the house and us with that.
So to be clear, when you guys arrived at 1:30, going off your question, you guys believe everyone was dead inside?
I believe so, yes.
So at the house right now, is that family that's there?
I'm not sure. Once they cleared the scene, there was some other family friends local, so I don't know. They will, once we clear a scene, they will turn it back over to family if they are able to.
Can you say what time the family member received the text? Earlier in the morning?
Yeah, it was earlier. I don't have an exact time, but hours prior to.
So you said you believed it's a murder-suicide. Was a note left or anything? How'd you determine that?
I don't know the exact details. I think a lot of it comes from kind of if you see inside and you can kind of see the situation. But obviously our major crimes folks were comfortable saying that. I don't know anything about a note or anything that was left yet.
Anything else unusual about this investigation that may have made it more difficult, or?
No, I think we've talked about just those challenges on a situation like this where it's like third-hand kind of information that comes in, and then kind of what that response looks like being some of the challenge.
When can we expect to learn more?
Like I said, I know at this point, I know they haven't talked with all the family. I know our major crimes folks today, as they came in this morning, were starting to come up with a plan of reaching out to extended family, see if there was other indications or anything like that, and then really it's waiting for some autopsies to be performed by the ME and see if everything that our investigators think lines up with everything that the ME and the autopsy reveals, and then kind of going from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.